Legal disclaimer. The information provided during this seminar is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. The presenters are not licensed medical professionals unless explicitly stated otherwise. All discussions, suggestions, and recommendations are based on personal experiences, research, and knowledge of natural remedies. Participants are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare provider or medical professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or healthcare regimen, including the use of natural remedies discussed during the seminar. Individual results may vary, and the information provided may not be suitable for every individual. By attending this seminar, participants acknowledge and agree that 1. The presenters and organizers shall not be held responsible or liable for any outcomes, direct or indirect, resulting from the use or misuse of the information presented. 2. Attendance and participation in this seminar do not establish a doctor-patient or professional-client relationship between participants and the presenters. 3. The use of the information provided is at the participant's own discretion and risk. This seminar is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All information is shared in good faith, and participants are encouraged to exercise personal judgment and seek professional advice as needed. But, we pray that you will seek be the great physician, and not the witch doctors of Babylon, that cut, burn, and poison the body temple. Revelation 18 verse 23.
I would go to the medicine cabinet and get out the pills and think to myself, if a headache is simply a lack of Excedrin, why don't I have a headache?
The average American is only drinking this amount of water. The average person in China who only drinks 4% of what they need, so about 3/4 of the way. That's how much water the average person in China is drinking.
In taking those 3 needle biopsies of my thyroid, they ascertained that I had cancer, but they couldn't tell.
Father in heaven, we come before you once again into the most holy place by faith in the 3 angels' messages. We praise and bless you that you have opened a door whereby we can find access to you while judgment is going on. We ask that as we come and examine our lives by the 10 Commandment law, which is there, that we will be honest in heart enough to stand before you, pleading for forgiveness for where we have fallen short of your glory. We plead for help to overcome through the blood of the Lamb. And today, as we study together and learn together, I pray that this will be a joy to learn together, and that as we go forth to help those who are sick and dying around us, that we will be lights wherever you send us this coming week. And we praise and bless and thank you for your presence here, for being our teacher. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay.
In 5T 447, 443, it says, there are many ways of practicing the healing art, but there is only one way that heaven approves. So today we want to look at those 10 laws of health that he has given us. And as we strive for better health and coming closer to him, we hope that this is a blessing to all. He has up on the screen here, if I can pull it down
laws.
right, the 10 moral laws that were given on Sinai, etched in stone, and the 10 laws of health that were given to us through the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Pure air, sunlight, temperance, rest, herbs, exercise, proper diet, use of water, trust in divine power, and a clear conscience. And sadly enough, the pharmaceutical companies, the doctor-trained care providers, have not been trained in these 10 laws. In fact, I have heard many advocate staying out of the sun because it can give you cancer. I've heard many advocate don't drink water. My great-grandmother, when she had, they called it elephantitis back then, I don't know what they call it today, but in one of her legs, the doctor told her don't drink more than 8 ounces of water in a 24-hour period. And so these advocates of the opposite of what God tells us are fixing to make sick people, not well people. And so we're here to try and help us with the 10 laws God has given us, learn how to have good health and not need a physician. Because Jesus said that those who are sick are the ones who need a physician. So
we've been talking about, we've gone through cayenne and chaparral and cloves and comfrey. And this week we're going to be talking about garlic.
Finally.
Yes, it was supposed to be last week, but we didn't get there with all the fun we had with the water. So anyway, we're going to be covering about garlic, but not just garlic. We want to expand that a little bit.
I had the question come in here some time back that in Numbers 11:5 it says, we remember, this is the complaining Israelites. They said, we remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. And now our soul is dried up here in this wilderness. So the thought is with some, we shouldn't eat garlic and onions and leeks because those are Egyptian foods and we need to come out of Egypt. But notice it also says cucumbers and melons there. And it wasn't that eating those things was bad for you or wrong. In fact, just the opposite. We'll find out today how medicinal garlic is. But what the Israelites were griping about was that they were having to go through this process where God gave them one type of food. He gave it to the whole camp, just one type of food, so that he could purify their thinking, because they had
put them on a cleanse to clean them up.
He had brought them out of Egypt, out of bondage, and they were steeped in heathenism. And so he was trying to purify, you're right, put them on a cleanse, purify their bodies so they could think straight.
Right.
So by the time they got to Canaan, they would not only be in good health, but they would also understand his will and way. According
they
to
were
the
looking
commandments.
for a large variety of food.
Yes.
And a larger quantity of food, because it was limited
And a different
quantity.
type.
And
They
a different
wanted-
type as well.
They wanted death in the pot.
Yes, they were looking for
Yeah.
the birds. So, talking about garlic, just for those that have seen us with this is our little health handbook. Not ours, but that we like
Used
to
for
use,
years.
and some of you have gotten them. So page 176 in here, it talks about garlic. And first of all, I'm just going to go through some of the specific uses for garlic. Now, we all think of garlic as being an awesome seasoning to flavor, garlic bread and having it in that way. What about medicinally speaking?
Oh, it's excellent.
It does a lot.
All around healer, yes.
So here's specific uses for it that are medicinal. It helps the respiratory system, the circulation system, digestion, nerves, and sinuses. Ever bit into some real hot garlic? That'll clean your sinuses for you. Dissolves cholesterol and loosens it out of the arteries.
So it takes the plaque out of the arteries and
Yes.
helps the blood flow.
It helps clear that up.
Excellent.
It kills infections and putrefaction. It acts on bacteria, viruses, and internal parasites and worms, which parasites, general term for worms. It reduces blood pressure. By the way, if you have normal blood pressure or low blood pressure, it's not going to reduce it. So in other words, if you have low blood pressure, you don't have to stay away. It's smart enough to reduce it if you need it, and if you don't, it isn't an issue. It's not going to reduce it if you don't need it. It builds intestinal flora, purges the system of pollutants, builds the immune system, stimulates the lymphatic system, prevents pneumonia, colds, flu, dysentery, diarrhea, strep infections, kills candida, yeast infections. So I don't know if you all caught this, but garlic works on bacteria, it works on viruses, it works on fungal and parasitic infections or issues.
All three.
All of them.
All three.
All of them. And I actually listed 4 there because I was double listing, because some people have argued that a virus is not a parasite. So anyway, garlic covers them all.
It's a revitalizing herb. It also helps, you said it cleans out the blood vessels, the cardiovascular system, but it strengthens the heart as well, especially if coupled with cayenne and hawthorn, my book here says.
So vitamins and mineral content. It's high in phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and zinc. Remember sometime back that the big... back about 2019, 2020, when we had this issues around the world with health, and there were a lot of people saying zinc was the cure.
Yeah.
And was a big help for that. Okay. So garlic is one place that you can get a lot of zinc. It's high in zinc. It has moderate amounts of selenium, which, by the way, is very depleted from our soils. When we were on the ranch, we had to actually give selenium shots to the sheep to keep them alive, because it wasn't in the feeds that they were getting in adequate amounts. Vitamin A and C, small amounts of calcium, magnesium, sodium, iron, manganese, and some B-complex vitamins. Some of the people have asked, well, where do I get my B vitamins? Well, eat lots of garlic. Keep in mind, fresh garlic is going to work much better than cooked garlic, as far as it'll be much more potent. And if you're worried about bad breath, well, you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can either say, I'm not going to get sick because you who are sick aren't going to get close enough to me because of my bad breath.
Garlic breath.
Bad garlic breath. Or you can eat parsley with your garlic, which, by the way, I think we've got some things on parsley that we were going to talk about as well today.
Celery.
Celery, not parsley? Okay. Well, parsley is fantastic for the kidneys as well. So it is also a medicinal food. Yes, you could call it, like garlic is a medicinal food. And it helps a lot with taking care of the garlic breath, using some
just
parsley
chew a
with
sprig
it.
of parsley after
Yep,
you've
after
eaten
you've eaten the raw garlic.
And it'll take it away.
Yeah, you want something to make your life exciting, is take cloves of garlic and slice them very, very thin and put them on a piece of bread and put some, I like to use Melanie's her cashew cheese over it, kind of something to cover it so it's not quite directly on the roof and the tongue of the mouth when you bite it, and have a garlic sandwich.
I tell you won't be sick.
It is powerful. And we love it. We think it's great as far as that goes. But that just gives you one option for using garlic. By the way, before I forget, because I almost did, something that happened to us several years ago now, we were still out west. We, of course, have always liked garlic. If we're out of onions and garlic in our house, we're out of groceries. And so anyway, we had, Melanie had put a bunch of, we'd crushed it or something. We had a bunch of raw garlic that we'd had with our meal. And that day, we got violently sick, extremely sick. And we're like, wow, how did we get sick with having garlic? And just, well, we must not have taken it soon enough. And we're trying, and I mean, all of us went down at the same time. And I started searching and laying on, I mean, it was vomiting, it was diarrhea, it was nausea, it was, we just really felt like crud. It really wiped us out hard. And we just don't get sick because we're constantly working on keeping our immune systems well. And so we were kind of surprised. And so I started searching, and it's like, we got botulism, right? Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I said it right. We ended up with botulism, and I was like, because all the symptoms fit. It's like, how did we end up with this? And it only lasted hard for 24 hours, and then we were pretty much kind of feeling a little slow, but back up and going again. And the following day, so 2 days later, I was at the grocery store picking some things up, just our little grocery in town. And the fellow was there, not the normal grocer that stocks the shelves and does things, but he was the supplier that was there and that comes and inspects and helps set up displays and whatnot. And I asked him, said to him, is it possible that we could have gotten botulism from eating garlic, raw garlic? And because I asked him, I said, I got a question for you. And, you may or may not have an answer. And he turns completely then to look at me because he was still looking. He had responded to my asking, but he was still kind of busy working. He stopped and he looked at me and he said, "You bought garlic from Walmart, didn't you?" And I said,
yes, we did.
"Yeah, as a matter of fact." And he said, "And there were no roots fragments left on the bottom of the garlic. It was all cleaned off." And I said, I don't know.
I said yes.
I don't
You're right.
remember. And Melanie's responding, yes. And he said, yeah, that garlic comes out of China when it doesn't have the roots on it.
And he said, very well, you could have gotten.
And he says, you very, very well could have ended up with botulism from that. He said, it is a high carrier, especially if it's not been handled correctly. And he says, your indicator whether you're getting any... He walks over a few steps away and he grabs some garlic off of the shelf and he flips it around and he says, you see this? And he showed us the bottom of the garlic. Can you go get some garlic so we can show it?
Yeah, I was going to do that.
We were going to do that and forgot. So he shows us the bottom of the garlic and he says, make sure your garlic looks like this. And he says, you won't have the problem again. And I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely don't want this again.
A lot of times when you buy like the powdered garlic or whatever, or garlic salt, which I don't really use, but it says organic, but it will say from China.
Yes. Yes.
Be wary.
That's scary.
By the way, the other thing that's happening with garlic, here, lay that one right over there. Pull the paper out of there.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So,
See all the root ball on it.
hang on, I'm blowing it up here for him. Okay, so you see how there's the roots there on the bottom of the garlic? When you see that, you're not getting the standard way that it comes out of China is entirely 100% cut off.
And they grow it in
Human
human fecal matter.
fertilizer.
And so for fertilizer, they use human fecal matter,
It's
which
all approved. The
is-
other thing that's happening with garlic
Okay.
powder, and I want to respond to Donna here with this, is we recently learned that they're using the peelings of the garlic. So that you can buy a lot of garlic that's already peeled and in jars in the store. They're taking the peelings of the garlic,
and blending it.
drying it, powdering it, and making the garlic powder from the peelings.
Don't waste anything,
Saving money. So anyway,
and that's why it doesn't help you that much.
so your garlic powder,
I would encourage you to try and grow your own, though.
Yeah.
So you have a fresh supply all the time.
it's easy to grow garlic. Anyway,
Let your food be your medicine.
Oh, the other thing, I knew there was something else. I was kind of stumbling because I was thinking there was something else she had said. I wanted organic. So organic can be like this. So this year, the commercial field is
That's genius.
chemical. Okay, it's a chemical process and field. So this year they plant it, and it's chemical and whatnot. And they may plant it, and so what they do is they say, okay, this year we're not going to put any chemicals on our chemical field. And they may plant carrots. That's one of their favorites because carrot detoxifies the earth. Of course, then you get toxic carrots, so be careful about that. That's why we're supposed to grow as much as we can ourselves. There's a good reason for that. But then, so the second year, the following year, they plant organic seed. But they can't call it organic the second year because it's still not, but they plant organic seed that second year. Year 3, and they harvest and sell the crop. Year 3, they can and this may vary a little bit state to state, but in general terms, it's usually year 3, if not year 4, then they can, by planting, so they might have a couple of years of planting organic seed and not be able to officially call it organic. But then they can get their soil certified organic. And so they've really, within a very, very short time, literally within 3 years, they can call it organic. But there's a step that's worse than that. We were, and we've shared this before, I'll just share briefly. While working on the ranch, we also had some of the ranchers that we were, neighboring ranchers, were also cranberry farmers. And one of them was an organic, he was organic with his animals as well as organic with his cranberries, because you can buy organic beef. And anyway, but I want to specifically talk about the cranberries. So with the cranberries, the one was organic grower, one was not. So I actually asked the question to our organic grower and our non-organic grower. We were talking about it. I said, so what do you use for your crops? Well, he used the exact same chemicals, the organic grower did, that the non-organic grower did. The difference was the guy that was not organic, he only applied those chemicals one time. And in the one specific case, towards the end of the season, 5 weeks before harvest, he would apply his chemicals which caused the cranberries to all turn the leaves, or everything to die. It's like putting Roundup on the wheat fields. So it all dies. And I forget the chemical that was used. I'd have to think about it, what was used there. But anyway, he puts it on in one large dose, and the non-organic farmer, a commercial farmer, he had 40 acres of cranberries, which is a pretty good area. And he would put it all in one dose, and then he would harvest his cranberries. The organic farmer would put it on in 4 doses. the same exact chemical. But he used a smaller quantity. So I flat out asked, I said to the non-organic guy, I said, what is the ratio rate of chemical that you put on per acre for your crop when you spray? And so he shared it, because we're all there talking together. So I asked the organic guy, I said, so what is the rate that you put it on, this chemical on? And by now, by the way, I've got the whole class, including the Oregon State University professor that was there, that was directing the class, as attention. I said, how much do you put on per each one? So he shared it. Well, guess what? He put on less than the organic or non-organic guy.
And the non-organic.
And I said, so I said, the organic guy said, so how many times do you put it on? Well, 4 times, 5 times. I was like, okay. When is the last time that you put the chemical on? Well, that's about a week to 7 to 10 days prior to harvest, depending on weather and whatnot. So we're 5 weeks out for the non-organic. We are 7 to 10 days out on the last one. So then I asked the next question that really laid it wide open.
Broke up the class.
Yeah, it stopped the class, you might say. I said, did you spray the same amount on each application that you did on that first application to the organic guy? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, okay, so some simple math here. We multiplied it out. I said, in reality then, you used about 25 to 30% more chemical than the non-organic grower, and you sprayed it up to 7 to 10 days away from harvest, and yet you are certified
organic.
Oregon State certified organic, and it is perfectly legal and legit for you to do this. And he said yes. And then my response was, so whose cranberries are safer? And I'm not going to give you the answer, because I think you all know. And I'm not saying organic is always wrong. If we grow things ourselves that are organic and done truly without the chemicals, yeah, it could be way better. And you may find some growers that are doing things better, but that's the laws where they were at in Oregon back around, that was somewhere 2002, 2003, somewhere in there.
Well, we had another grower from back east here, closer to us, that said it's federal law.
Okay.
So
that basically
we have
say
a
it's the same
hand
thing.
up
So,
here.
okay, we do. Susie, you got a hand up?
Yes, mentioning that, my sister and I just realized too that everything that's supposed to be organic is not organic, just like you just said. They're selling it for higher prices, but it's not better for you. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, not always.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead,
Mark, can I
Carolyn.
ask you a question? Okay. I'm not sure how to put a hand up on the phone thing. Okay.
You
All
can't.
right. So, Doctor, I can.
You cannot when it's the
okay.
telephone. You just have to do what you did.
All
Jump
right,
in
so
there.
I'm going to figure out. Okay. Anyway, so Dr. Reams, who was an agronomist, he was an Adventist actually, and he was a biophysicist and actually knew Einstein, and he was a brilliant agriculturist. And he said that, of course, this was in his day, and he's been dead a while, that organic foods were phosphate deficient. So my question is, so are these chemicals that they're putting on, is this a source of phosphate?
I'm sure they have phosphates in them if you look at the fertilizers.
Okay, well, I guess my point would be that he warned us that we needed to really watch out because vegetarians or people who are careful with organic food had a tendency to become calcium phosphate deficient, and then we had problems with our teeth and bones. And so, but now it sounds like the organic things, they're starting to put it in anyway, so maybe it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'll also get calcium and I think phosphate out of sesame seeds if you take and make the sprinkles.
So-
I've shown you in the past.
To to give kind of a summary on this, don't always trust that organic is better. And at the same time, this is why we do the best we can do.
And then
We
ask the
pray
Lord to
that
bless
God
it.
will bless
The food.
what we've done. Melanie, when she had cancer, everybody says, oh, when you're juicing, you should only use organic. We never used anything that was organic when she had cancer because we couldn't afford it. I was buying the cheapest things I could find and just praying, Lord, do something with this. And I still have her. So that is ultimate. But at the same time, you got to do the best you can do. You can't just go out there and buy the worst thing because it's the cheapest or whatever and expect God to make it something wonderful. We got to do our part.
Okay, can I just make one last little tiny comment, because you brought up some stuff that's really important, I feel like, and that is that, so when we're getting the stuff that's non-organic, I guess you could call it, it's really great if you could get stuff that's frozen, because they have to let it get completely ripe on the plant before they grab it and freeze it, and then you get more nutrition than if you get fresh stuff, because
Yes.
they get it green and gap it.
Correct. Thank you for sharing that. You're right, and that's a good point, a very good point.
Another and something to add to that. I want to take us back in history to when Ellen White was writing a lot of the counsel that we've looked at and that we go with. It's given her of God. They couldn't run to the local grocery store and buy fresh lettuce and tomatoes and peppers and all of these things. Mm-mm. And yet they were...
in fact, if they got an orange once, in December, they thought they were doing great.
That was
that
something
was a
special.
treat.
So how did they do it? How did they make it without that?
Turnips and rutabagas and all the root crops are so high in vitamin C.
Yes.
The beets,
those things, those root crops, and of course the garlic was right along with
Parsnips.
that.
Yeah.
They preserved those things that they grew in the summertime, and so they could do without that going to the store. Okay, go ahead.
Carolyn, you mentioned how do we get calcium? Garlic, like other members of the family, onion, leek, and chives, offers you an excellent source of vitamin C and a fair amount of vitamin A, B, and G. It abounds in the minerals of sulfur, iron, and calcium.
And she mentioned, the
Thank you.
phosphorus, right?
Phosphorus it didn't mention here, but
Okay,
yes, she
potassium.
mentioned...
No, potassium, that's what it was. Was it, or was it phosphorus?
Phosphorus.
Okay, so garlic, high amounts of phosphorus,
Phosphorus,
potassium,
potassium, and
sulfur,
sulfur,
and
and
zinc.
There you go.
So it's there. We can get it. We can find it. But we have to become knowledgeable about these things so that we can... We realize, okay, we can get these nutrients that we need out of, we can get our vitamin A out of the squash and obviously out of garlic. We can get it, we can get the potassium and so we can get these things that are, and yes, the soils are getting depleter, and it is harder to get things that are good, but I just want to encourage again, do the best you can do to get the best things. And like I said, I'm not saying don't buy organic necessarily, because it's not all the same, but if you get farmers markets in the summertime, take advantage of those things, and talk to them. So, do you grow? You go out to the
I'm sorry to
Amish.
interrupt that.
Go ahead.
I had one little thing that I thought was really important. Okay, so there's a tool you can buy. They use it in the vineyards and whatever to check for sugar levels. It's called a refractometer. You can also call it a Brix meter, and you're probably all aware of this little tool. It's like a monocle. You can look up in it. You can put a few drops of the liquid on it, and it'll tell you the sugar level. And they use it to see if the sugar is high enough to harvest the grapes. And so of course, for them for wine or whatever, but that also shows the mineral content of the food. And I've been trying to figure out a way to sneak that little thing in to farmer's market or the grocery store to just pinch a little something and check the mineral content before I buy it.
Ah, okay.
Well,
That's a great idea.
I'm so blunt and bold with that kind of thing. I've gone in and I haven't had one of those, but I'll have my phone and I'm taking pictures of the produce or the labels on the cans, and I've had one time where somebody said, "Can I ask what you're doing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'm taking pictures of what's in the food." "Well, why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I teach about health." "Well, what is there a problem with that?"
Yep,
Boy,
it's
that
got
opened up the
calcium
door.
chloride in it.
It had calcium chloride in it, and we stood there in the aisle and talked we ended up collecting a bunch of people standing there in the aisle, in the tomato aisle, and one person starts taking their cans, they look at them, it was in their cart, and they're putting them back on the shelf. I'm thinking, I better shut up before they kick us out of the grocery store. But
Donna, you have something to say? Your line's lit up.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to say. One's farming related, and the other's kind of more health related. But on the farming aspect, I've grown garlic for years, and I just have abundance. I mean, and when I harvest the garlic, it has these little baby seed garlics all around the big garlic, and some of those, stay in the ground.
Yep.
I can't get them all. And so my bed just keeps getting fuller and fuller and fuller of garlic. But when that little seed grows the next year, what you have is just a plain round bulb, kind of like an onion. It doesn't have the pods.
Right.
So I'm not sure that if you keep leaving that in the ground, would it turn into the pods by the next year or the next year? I don't know. Is there a farmer that has an answer to that question?
I grew that kind for years, and no, I never got it to pod back out. They were singles.
Okay.
For
But you
years
can
and
use them
years
that way?
before. That was out west. I moved out here and then lost all my stuff, so I don't grow that kind anymore. So I don't know if it would have eventually, but I tried it for 15.
But we still ate it.
15 years. But yeah, it still
Okay.
tasted like garlic. So yeah.
Well, on my next issue, I had a lovely neighbor call me this week and offered to bring me some corn chowder. And I said, "Well, is it GMO?" She said, "Well, it's out of a regular can." Well, I thought, well, it's GMO if it's not organic.
Yeah.
And, if you eat chips in a Mexican restaurant, you're eating GMO. And that doesn't seem to bother many people these days. But what the big issue, it bothers me. I don't want to eat any of it. GMO causes cancer. I've got some early research on that and rats and stuff. But the worst thing, when you go in a Walmart or anywhere, people are grabbing everything off the shelf, like Little Debbie's or, Hostess whatevers and cereals and granola bars and bakery stuff, and they're just throwing it in their buggy. And I tell you, every bit of that stuff, I'm amazed, kind of like every time you go, there's more and more stuff on the shelf that says bioengineered.
Yes.
And what I've been told about bioengineered, I haven't validated, don't have any way to verify it. But I hear that is them putting baby fetal cells as flavoring in the food. That's bioengineering.
They also
And
hide.
indeed.
They also hide it. They also hide it under natural flavorings, Donna.
I've heard that too.
Well, what could we eat between the dyes and the natural flavoring, the GMOs and the bio? If you don't grow your own food,
The bioengineering label it's a cover-all. It covers everything and anything.
Yes.
And you can ask them in the store what's in here that's bioengineered, and they don't know. They can be serving it from, like I did it at Whole Foods one day. I said, "What's in here that's bioengineered?" Nobody knew. I did this 3 or 4 times, and finally somebody came up with something
Wow.
and just said, "Oh, it's this. It must be this. It's the soybean oil or something." I don't know what they said. But,
Interesting.
so they don't know.
Well,
Nobody knows.
If indeed it is baby fetal cells that they're putting for flavoring in our food, and I did see one video where the abortion clinics were close to some of these plants that make the flavoring. But that would be cannibalism, and that would lead to
Correct.
prion disease eventually.
Correct.
And big problems.
Yes.
I'm glad somebody else thinks that besides me. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yes. Brother Ron, you've got your hand up.
Yes, we've been growing garlic for probably the last 8 years on a large scale. And what we grow is we grow the elephant garlic, and it is a single large clove, whereas regular garlic has multiple cloves. But those little things you were talking about, the seeds, they're called boobles. And they say when you plant garlic, you inoculate the soil. So, yeah, they will just keep coming up and coming up. But the difference with elephant garlic is that it's milder than regular clove garlic. And it kind of takes care of itself. It just comes back year after year after year.
Yes. That's the kind I like. I love volunteers. Are you through, Ron?
Yes, I'm finished. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm going to try and catch up on a couple comments here. When you can non-acid foods like squash, do you add acid like lemon juice? Yes, we do. In fact, I do that with my tomatoes now.
Especially
because
if we're canning.
Yes, that's what she said. When you can.
Oh,
when
okay.
You can them. Yes,
Okay.
I do. I use lemon juice. As for a USDA certified, once a product crosses the ocean, there is no jurisdiction or regulation. A company can legally use the certification symbol. Mother Earth News has a wonderful article explaining this. This article topic is about international USDA organic olive oil. Okay, thank you. Appreciate this. We need to be aware of what we're putting in our body temples.
Yeah.
More so than ever. So, thanks for these comments. Okay. So with garlic, use it fresh, use it dried, use it all you can. No, and if you don't like the smell of it, plant some parsley and chew on parsley after you eat it. Garlic is an
Molly,
incredible
can I ask you
healer.
a question? I'm sorry. You said something, I think it was last week, about bananas. Could you repeat what you said about bananas? You quit eating bananas? Did you say that?
We did for years because our son reacted to them, and we found out in 2000 they had begun inoculating the trees with the childhood disease shots. So for years and years we didn't have them in our house. We had bananas in our house this winter. We got them from some friends down in southern Florida, and they were so delicious.
That they grew.
Oh, they grew them. Yes, they grew them. The little fingerling bananas. They were
Okay,
absolutely
thank you.
marvelous. Yes.
Yeah, there's.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Now a good time for me to just share a little thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I have a sonicator. It's a jewelry cleaner, and it holds a half a gallon of water. And I
Okay.
can put anything in there that might have pesticides on it or any kind of bacteria or pathogens and run it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it will absolutely destroy every bad thing in there. But I do not think that it would do anything for something that was biologically, or what you call it, genetically modified.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think you could do anything about that.
No, that's an alteration of the DNA of the plant. If they have DNA.
So there's nothing we
Genes.
could do to redeem those plants. They're done.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Or those
for
products.
airing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was. I'm going to go to an area of. And I can't give you the quote for this. And if anybody else knows it or can find it,
Please shout.
please tell us, because I have been literally looking now for years. But I believe the quote, and that's why I'd like to find it, is to see if it was an original or not. But I believe it might have come out of Councils on Diets and Foods, but I'm not entirely sure. And I read that something to the effect of, there is a time coming when it won't be safe to eat anything unless we grow it ourselves. Now, that's my words. That's not the words likely that were exactly used. I have shared this with several different individuals. There was a lady up in Idaho I shared it with, and she goes, yes, I have read that. Let me get that for you. She looks, she goes, I can't find it. She says, I know I've read it. And she looked and looked. Literally, the two of us worked at it for quite a while right there on the spot because we were together at the time. And then later she told me, it was, I don't know, it was like a year or so later, she says, I've still been looking for that. And she says, I cannot find it, but I know I've read it.
Yeah.
And I've read that as well. And under the light of organics and what they're doing, and non-organics and what they're doing, and GMOs and all of this other stuff, yeah, we really are to the point, whether she really said it or not, we are better if we can,
Better off.
we're better off if we can grow it ourselves. We have somebody putting here, they're starting to add inoculations to spinach and lettuce. I actually have a
1970 or
article. It's on my. Maybe I'll try and bring it up, find it this week because I've got it. I have a picture of the Guide magazine, which Guide magazine is put out by Seventh-day Adventists for the teenagers. It's the teenagers magazine, and if I remember right, it was around late 1970s. And there's a blip in that magazine that talks about, I guess you could say, bioengineering is what we'd call it today. And it's putting inoculations into...
said they were going to spray the vitamins on the lettuce leaves.
It was inoculations is what they were talking about, if I recall right. I'll have to look that up again. I've saved it. I remembered reading it, and I was shocked by it at the time I read it as a kid, and I saved it. Well, that paper got lost years later, somewhere along the line. And so I went looking for that thing, and I went through and dug up out of the archives and looked at every magazine for hours until I finally, because I read about where it was at in the magazine. I remembered it, and I found it, and I have it. It's saved. It's on the computer that's doing the broadcasting that I can't really get to very well, but I'll bring that up to show you. This is not something new. This is something that's been going on for many, many years. Somebody put in here, they're starting to add inoculations to spinach and lettuce, and somebody else is saying even organic spinach. And I would have to say, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, and I don't know if there's any way. I'm sure there's a lot of conspiracy theory that we could speculate about all of this. I really don't know, and this is why it comes back to what I said a bit ago. We have to do the best we can do, and then we have to pray that God will do the rest. And if He doesn't come soon to get us, we will all be wiped out. We're gonna.
I think that it's true. I believe that it's true that a sonicator will destroy those inoculations if you sonicate your vegetables.
Okay. And I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know. Donna, you started to say something too?
It's a jewelry cleaner, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, a while back, Lori and some of her friends were gardening together, and there was this big dispute about using any kind of sprays and stuff. And Lori happened to find this quote. She's online when you're on the phone, but it's Selected Messages, Book 3, page 329. And I think this is important because, we are living, I think we're living in the year of depopulation. I do. And they're trying it from every way possible. But it says the spraying of fruit trees. There are those who say that nothing, not even insects, should be killed. God has not entrusted any such message to His people.
That's right.
It is possible to stretch the command, thou shalt not kill, to any limit, but it is not according to sound reasoning to do this. Those who do it have not learned in the school of Christ. This earth has been cursed because of sin, and in these last days, vermin of every kind will multiply. These pests must be killed, or they will annoy and torment and even kill us and destroy the work of our hands and the fruit of our land. In places there are ants, and termites in parentheses, which entirely destroy the woodwork of houses. Should not these be destroyed? Fruit trees must be sprayed that the insects which would spoil the fruit may be killed. God has given us a part to act, and this part we must act with faithfulness. Then we can leave the rest with the Lord. God has given no man the message, kill not ant or flea or moth. Troublesome and harmful insects and reptiles we must guard against and destroy to preserve ourselves and our possessions from harm. And even if we do the best to exterminate these pests, they will still multiply. I've had trouble with squash bugs, tomato worms, squirrels, groundhogs, moles, snails, ants, termites.
Yes.
It's doubling down, is all I can say.
Yes.
Since we've been in Tennessee, we realize they have a bug that eats everything here.
What's that reference that you just read?
Selected Messages, Book 3.
She's telling her. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah. Selected Messages, Volume 3, page 329.
329. Thank you.
I'd already closed the book.
329. It's also out of Review and Herald, August 31st, 1961.
Brother Richard?
Yes. When you're talking about nothing being safe anymore, over the last few years particularly, I started noticing how the organic companies, who were the ones that were founded and run by family businesses who started growing and doing their own thing, these were being gobbled up by large corporate interests.
Yes.
And I figured this out with it. First, it happened with a cookie I used to buy. It was a frozen cookie, and it was organic. I can't remember the name. But one day I got some, and I baked some up, and they didn't taste right. They didn't taste right. They didn't even, the texture was even all wrong. And I said, well, these must be old. So I went and got some more, and it was the same thing. So I called the company, and when the phone on the other end answered, it said General Mills. And that was not the name of the company, the company on the cookie package, nor was there the name General Mills anywhere on the package. So I just hung up. I called back. It was late at night, so I called the next day during the day, and the nice young lady answered. Immaculate Cookies is what it's called, Immaculate Cookies. She said, Immaculate Cookies. I said, well, that's interesting. I said, you're saying Immaculate Cookies, and I called last night, and it said General Mills. Which is it? Oh, well, we were acquired about 6 months ago by General Mills. I said, oh, that must be why the cookies taste like crap now. And she just kind of was quiet for a minute. She said, well, I'll send you some coupons. I said, well, I don't know if you should bother, because if it's owned by General Mills, I don't want it.
Yeah, yeah.
What I've been discovering lately is, first I started researching the peanut butter I was using. I found out that was acquired by a large corporate interest. Recently, I noticed B&M baked beans were taken off the shelves, and B&M used to have this canned brown bread, and it's very good, and it was very nutritious. It was very healthy, and it had wholesome ingredients in it. Well, you can't find that anymore either, so I started doing some research on that. B&M baked beans started at the turn of the century. It was a company in the north somewhere. And they made all their products, and it was owned by the same people until 1999. In 1999, Pillsbury acquired them. So I kept following it down to recently. And this takes a lot of research to track all these companies down.
It does.
And I finally found out that currently it seems that there's a German company that owns it, and it's a German company that's been around since the war, and they make poisons. They probably had something to do with the death camps. I don't know, but they're a corrupt company.
Wow.
Most of these companies, everybody, if you listen to anything online much, they're saying these companies are initially being backed by BlackRock. That BlackRock is the one acquiring most of the food corporations, and what used to be the cigarette conglomerates, they're acquiring the food organizations as well. So this all adds up, and it all kind of, it's when you get the information from, when one is doing research and you start getting parallel information that says the same thing from different sources, then you know that it's not fiction. You can pretty much rest assured it's not fiction.
Karen's next.
It's the same information. So this
Right.
this is what we're dealing with, and they're sneaky. They're sneaky. There was like this same company. They listed their brands. One of the brands they carry is Grandma's Molasses. That's one of them, and then they have other various fresh vegetable salad packs that they produce. So you can't trust any of it.
No.
So
No.
you have to.
We need our food needs to be not processed. We need to go back to the whole
Go up to the Amish and
the
get
whole-
and get a
whole
hold
grains
of
and
like
things.
a 25-pound bag of beans and soak your own. Cook your
Okay,
own.
Karen.
Well, another thing I think we need to recognize is all these big companies that are under those umbrellas, like even Kraft and Lay's, all these, they're owned by really the few guys at the top that are into depopulation.
It says in the chat here there's only about 10 corporations. There's 10 large corporations that now own the food producers of this nation, and I'm not surprised. It's this is how they're taking out America. Karen, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Hang on, Richard.
Yeah.
That's
Excuse-
okay. I don't know how many of you live in Tennessee besides myself and Sister Molly and Brother Mark. But right after COVID, the rumors were they were going to put the vaccine in food, especially vegetables, produce, I should say. And I guess they were going to get the resistors no matter what, no matter who, because if you resisted, they were going to make sure you got the vaccine, even if you had to get it in food. So one day we were traveling for work and the news came on, and the local legislator here in Nashville, it came over the news that they were in session, and of course they heard about that news, what supposedly they were going to do with the COVID vaccine, and they told it to the public, the Tennessee public, and also added if any farmers or whoever, after they bought the food, that they injected anything in the foods, they had to label it, and the supermarkets had to label it so anybody buying that food would know the vaccine is in it. And I've looked and looked and looked. I even went to Kroger's manager, the store that I go to, and I told him, and he said, yes, we know about it, but we don't buy any food that has any inoculation.
Praise God.
But I don't trust. Every time they were mainly targeting berries, like strawberries and raspberries and things like that, and tomatoes. But I still don't trust them. Every time I go and I have to buy any of those things, I make sure and I read the label so that it does not have the COVID vaccine in it.
Right.
We do live in perilous times, and were it not for the covering, God's people wouldn't have a chance. Another question? Another hand up?
My hand's up. I just didn't know if anybody mentioned a while ago when was talking about bioengineering. I understand that's the same thing as GMO. Did you mention that? I missed it if you did.
I believe it's
Very similar to.
Okay.
I
understand it was the same.
there's more to the bioengineering than there is GMOs. If my brain is
Yeah,
awake
and
to
it's
this, it's been a
been
while
put in the
since I
chat.
read
GMO falls under that category.
it. Okay, there you go. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Brother Richard, you had something else to say?
Yeah, the 8 or 10 companies that have basically acquired most of the food industry are those companies that were the cigarette giants, and most of their food products are on the cereal shelves, the fast food snacks, all the super processed foods. But now they're getting slicker. There's companies branching out. They don't seem to be affiliated with these companies. They're their own. They're their own poisonous source. They're their own servants of Satan that are acquiring these organic food companies. That's been happening at least probably for 10 years or more. Especially since I learned about B&M baked beans in '99. Well, it was Pillsbury, so we don't know what Pillsbury was doing back then. But all of these companies, Pillsbury, Kraft Foods, all of them have been acquired by those same cigarette companies. Those are the
Correct.
same people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
same heads. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
all of this just adds up to we need to
We've been given the
be
counsel.
diligent. We need to get out of the cities, be out of the cities. We need to be striving to grow our own things as much as we possibly can, and then we. I was going to say we try to. We ask the Lord to do something with it. Oh, and stay away from processed food.
Yes.
Processed food of any kind is not healthy. And in our own home, we're still using, I guess you could say, a little bit of processed food. And when I say processed food, I'm talking about like we have some rice noodles that get used occasionally because we have them yet. But I don't know if we're going to even continue getting those once they're gone. We're going back to, if it isn't the bean, the seed, the grain, or I should say the legume, the grain,
The fruit,
the fruit,
the vegetable.
and vegetables. If
Forget
it's not that and we're preparing it from at that level, we're going away from using it just because we want better health.
Okay.
Mark, I wanted to do kind of like you. I've been really tempted. Of course, I don't have a phone camera. I just have a big camera. I've been wanting to take that to the stores because I don't care if it's the local little community store or the Walmart store. The yellow and green squash on the shelf, I don't know anybody that would possibly buy that stuff is rotten on the shelf. And another thing that I've been watching through the years, I was worried about produce many years ago because more and more of it was coming from Mexico or wherever, and I'm thinking, why aren't we growing this ourselves? But the Walmart shelves are being just taken over by their brand, Great Value. And most people think, oh, it's a great value, it's cheaper, I'm going to get it. Well, I'm afraid of it because I think it probably all comes from China.
A lot of our food
Possibility.
does.
Okay, well,
I have some.
Melanie's got some questions that have come in by other, over the last few weeks and days, and we want to touch on those before we run out of time here.
So we still have a lot of different ones suffering from gout, and one fellow said, I've tried everything that you already spoke about. What else? So I went digging in a bunch of books this week and came up with a few more things that you can do at home to try and get the reduction of the gout. I would still encourage the castor oil packs on the knees or wherever the gout is. But gout, dark tart cherry juice, and strawberries. Strawberry smoothies sweetened with banana. Do not put any sugar in it because sugar is deadly for gout. It flares it up big time.
And of course, the bananas, you try to get
the organic, the little fingerlings.
The little fingering ones, which
Yeah,
you can usually
right.
find with your India
The other
Bazaar.
thing was strawberry leaves. They say wild strawberry leaves are more medicinal than the what do you call them? Domestic ones.
ones, yeah, production
So,
ones.
and I don't know, we've lived quite a few different places, high desert, and here it's very rainy here. They get about 12 feet of rain a year. And yet everywhere we've gone, if you go for a walk in a wooded area, you'll find little strawberry leaves all over. You might not see the fruit, but there's the leaves. So strawberry leaf tea is also a helper to get rid of gout. And for getting rid of gout, lower your salt intake. It not only gives gout distresses, but it also hardens the arteries. So lower your salt intake. And we'll talk about another thing here in a minute to help with it as well. Then for rheumatism, neuralgia, pains, celery juice. Celery juice. Celery is good for nervousness, headaches, sleeplessness. Somebody was asking about sleep. Celery juice is good for sleep. And a really good nervine to relax the nerves and help you sleep well is a 1/4 teaspoon of celery seed, a 1/4 teaspoon of valerian root, a 1/2 teaspoon of catnip and skullcap together. And you pour hot water over that, let it steep,
Make
and
a
then
tea.
strain it and drink it about 20 minutes before bed, the book said. So celery
Can
is,
you repeat that, Sister Molly?
Yes.
Can you repeat the ingredients?
yes, a 1/4 teaspoon celery seed, a 1/4 teaspoon of valerian root powder, 1/2 teaspoon of catnip and skullcap. And you pour hot water over it, let it cool, strain it, and drink it. And you'll have a happy rest. Your celery is high in vitamin B complex, not just 1 or 2 of the B's, but almost all of them. It's high in magnesium and iron. So celery is very, very therapeutic. The roots, the seeds, the whole plant are good for you. And I would suggest try and grow your own.
And don't, when everybody says, well, you can't grow celery, celery doesn't grow in this area.
Don't believe them.
Don't believe them. We were in Lewiston, Idaho area, and everybody said, you can't grow celery here. It doesn't grow in this climate. It doesn't grow in our soil. Melanie had celery plant. When it went to seed, it was 5 feet tall, growing by the front door.
I chopped it down and left it. I had it in a flower bed by the house. I chopped it down and the snow came and I thought, oh, that's the end of that. The next spring, the thing started sprouting and going to seed again. It was amazing. So if you can get it started, it's good to grow.
It's actually quite hardy.
Okay. Conventional fertilizers and pesticides have been used by the Amish from generation to generation. They have sold organic farmers markets for decades. It is good rule of thumb to ask questions and get to know your farmer.
Yes.
This is what we did. These are so many older folks that are retired and love a hobby of growing in their backyard. How many peppers can one person eat? With today's technology, one can put out their local Facebook group inquiring backyard gardeners.
The other thing that you can do, when we used to do it all the time, it is glean. And I'm not talking gleaning going to the farmer's field. I'm talking about driving. We were in, I'll give you an example. Last summer, we were in California, traveling through. We stopped for fuel, and Melanie goes, wow, look at that. There's oranges right there hanging on the tree in their backyard. And she says, I'm going to go talk to him. I said, okay, I won't leave you. I'm fueling. It's going to take a bit. Off she goes with a grocery sack in her hand.
So I went and knocked on their door and asked them, and they said, oh, yes, we eat them. They're actually tangerines, but we'll give you some because we can't eat them all. And so they shared a whole
They
bag
filled a whole grocery
bags.
two grocery sacks full of tangerines with us.
They were so delicious.
They were ripe off of the tree. That was a special treat. But you can do that kind of thing, and we don't. Most of us don't live in California where we can get tangerines, but you can. When we lived in Tonasket, Washington, there were cherry trees. There were peach trees, there were apple trees that you go and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, sure, help yourself. And like the pear tree that's in this area.
Okay, moving on.
Yes, we've
Moving
got
on.
move on here to finish up one more thing because we are basically out of time.
We've had some questions come in. What do I do for my stress and depression? So I went back to the water book. We went over water last week. We showed you what to drink and what not to drink. But if you want to get rid of stress and depression, hydrate. Most of us run dehydrated all the time. And so one of the things that really stresses out the body and brings on depression is a dehydrated brain. The brain is first to go dehydrated even before your lips start showing dehydration. So if you're dehydrated, you're going to not be able to cope with fear, anxiety, and anger or depression. They'll all hit you and take over your life. In seeking professional help, they'll give you medication to take care of it. It's not a lack of aspirin that causes a headache.
Most of the time, a
dehydration.
cure for headache for most of the time, unless it's brought on by drugs or some other issue, bang in the head or something. Yeah. Most of the time, it means you're dehydrated. And if
or
you
constipated, which is dehydration.
Dehydration.
Yes.
So if you were to drink 3 12-ounce glasses of water within a 30-minute period, the majority of the time the headache will go away. And I didn't say 3 glasses of water with 6 aspirin or Tylenol with each. I said 3 glasses of water. Yeah. It's amazing, and it works. And I know it works well. I can testify to it personally because I tend to not drink enough water. And I think a lot of us do that. We don't drink enough water. I did a whole video about water and how much to drink and all of that. It's on our YouTube and it's still online. That I'd have to look for.
Your sugar isn't low. Just be sure because your water will wash your sugar out. And if you're hypoglycemic, you're going to have a terrific headache and you could even go into a coma if you wash too much, your sugar too low. So if you have a problem with that, don't do the water.
So do take a spoonful of raw honey. Best to do it in the morning. That helps, and also get on the herbs that will help the pancreas work better. This book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, is by Dr. Batman Gillage. Who received his education from London. But as he got into medicine, he was really disgusted with the fact that he wasn't helping anybody get better. And when he saw people that were really tremendously ill, he started looking for answers. And as a result, it led him to start hydrating his people. He had people come to him who had chronic fatigue. They had been so chronically dehydrated that they had gotten chronic fatigue syndrome. After a period of time of correcting their dehydration and its metabolic complications, chronic fatigue syndrome would improve beyond recognition. In other words, it would leave. They would get rid of it.
So, get rid of chronic fatigue, drink water, and get off the caffeine.
Yes. So, he tells through this book so many different things. Severe dehydration causes inflammation of the body systems that are worked, like muscles. If you go work out in the gym and you haven't had water for 12 hours, say you hit the gym first thing in the morning, and we know some people who do that. And if you're not well hydrated, you're going to have a lot of inflammation happen. So make sure you're hydrated before you work those muscles. Hypertension and chronic pains are caused many times by our lack of hydration. And you may think, okay, so I drink enough water because I drink tea or I drink colas or I drink coffee, but caffeinated drinks, you would have to take 5
5 equal amounts to get back to where you were before you drink. So if you drink a can of 7-Up, you're going to have to, which is everybody thinks is a really mild pop or soda pop, okay? So you drink that 1 can. You're going to have to drink 5 12-ounce equivalents. I think cans are 10 or 12 ounce, something like that. Anyway, you're going to have to drink 5 of the same amount before you get your hydration level back to what it was before you drank that 1 can. And that's non-caffeinated things.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't have caffeine in it. Then that's the same thing.
Correct.
If
Because
it's
of the sugar
caffeine,
level.
it's because of the sugar level.
Wow.
Because of the sugar level. These are central nervous system stimulants. At the same time, they are dehydrating agents because of their strong diuretic action on the kidneys. 1 cup of coffee contains 85 milligrams of caffeine. 1 cup of tea contains 50 milligrams of caffeine. And a cola drink contains about 50 milligrams of caffeine, part of which is added to standardize the recipe when extracting the active substances from the nut of cola. So these all burn out the system. This is one of the reasons for Alzheimer's disease and learning disabilities in children.
Lack of water.
Because the children are taught to, oh, here, have a Kool-Aid. Oh, here, have a pop. Or soft drink. But then hypertension comes on, the cholesterol formulates, both lead to heart problems. And so what all of these other drinks do is they close a number of open capillaries in the vascular bed and increase the pressure in the rest to squeeze the water through the membranes into the cells in priority organs. And he says, don't forget, dehydration is the number 1 stressor of the human body, any living matter. So it's very important that we stay hydrated, or our blood vessels are not going to be in good shape at all. He says salt is needed to break up the mucus in the lungs and render it watery for its expulsion from the airways. In dehydration and in conjunction with water preservation, mechanisms and stimulation and associated salt preservation program becomes established. Not losing salt to mucus secretion becomes a part of the program. So he's urging one, don't drink so much water without taking a little salt on the tongue. And he says, put it on the tongue, but then take it down with water so as not to hurt the palate of your mouth if it's too strong for you. I just wanted to run through some of these things, and I'm going to do it by going to the contents page. These are some of the things he has cured with just water after years and years of suffrage under pills. Dyspeptic pain from ulcers, duodenal and stomach. Colitis pain, that's in your colon. False appendicitis pain. Hiatus hernia pain, that's the hernia in the top of the stomach. Rheumatoid arthritis pain, low back pain, which would be kidneys, neck pain, headaches, stress and depression, and high blood pressure, hypertension, high blood cholesterols, excess body weight, overeating. He takes it down by saying, you're not hungry. Don't take a bite right now. Take some water. And I don't have time to read you that chapter. Asthma and allergies are caused, the histamines that cause the bronchs to close down. When they start shutting down, that is one of the body's last screams for hydration. And what do? They give people a nebulizer to shoot some steroids in there to open those up instead of giving them water. He has taken people, Dr. Batman Gillage, has taken people off of all of their medication for allergies and asthma simply by getting them to hydrate, and stay hydrated. If you're hydrated, you have better sleep patterns, and it also prevents heart attacks. So those are just a few of the things. There's more here that I could go over, but won't. But chronic cellular dehydration painfully and prematurely kills. Its initial outward manifestations have until now been labeled as diseases of unknown origin. So if you're dying of a disease that they can't figure out what it is, go take some water. Go get a hold of some pure water. And you know what? If it's coming out of your tap and you think it might be toxic, drink it anyway. We're so... Yes.
The name of the book?
The name of the book.
Your Body's Many Cries for Water by
And author?
Dr. Batman Gillage. You know what? I'm going to put it up there
Put it on the scanner. I'll
for Mark to take a look at here.
pull it down.
I was trying to get his name. His name's on the bottom.
Right there. Yeah, and I think I'm zoomed out all the way. I am.
Okay. So here's his name. Batman Gillage, MD. He goes by Batman for short.
I don't.
BATMANGHELIDJ.
Spell that again. if you don't
BATMANGHELIDJ.
mind. Thank you so much.
Your Body's Many Cries for Water.
I had that all messed up.
Yeah. Here,
I
he
just wanted to
looks like
comment on
he
that.
looks like a normal person. If you want to see a
Yeah.
picture of him.
Yeah.
Pictures of him.
So the video that I did on water a couple of years ago is called the Power of Water, and so if you search on YouTube, The Power of Water, by Testimony Press Publications, you'll find that one. And I gave some amazing statistics about people not drinking enough and some of the issues. So anyway, that's just that. I was reading the chat here as I was talking. It's hard to read and talk about something else same time. Anyway, somebody else is saying they're familiar with the book, and that's a good book.
I'm trying to write it down here, but I just sent it out without finishing it. Read that question or that deal, Mark, please. Or you can't see it because I'm typing.
No.
Okay. Your
I wanted
Body's
to add
Many
that
Cries.
When we're talking about the carbonated beverages, not only the caffeines and the sugars, well, it's not sugar anymore, it's high fructose corn syrup for American beverages.
And that's deadly.
Yes.
The biggest effect is what it does to the blood. It raises the pH of the blood. And the formula I've heard for that is one carbonated 12-ounce beverage requires 64 ounces of water to restore the blood back to its normal pH. So that's, I don't,
Yes.
people even think about that kind of stuff.
No, we're not taught to think in this generation. We just go with the flow. We're not in gear. Actually, we're just flowing along. Okay, the quote here, the comment here. This gout formula increases uric acid elimination. Whoops. Okay, hang on a second. It went away.
You're there.
Elimination. Not safe during pregnancy or lactation. Kidney, GOUT. Alfalfa, ashwagandha, burdock, gravel root, mullein leaf, plantain, and sarsaparilla. Equal parts. That's in the chat. Alfalfa, ashwagandha, burdock, gravel root, mullein leaf, plantain, and sarsaparilla. I don't know what's not safe about that for pregnancy and lactation. I took all of those herbs at one or another time when I was pregnant with Matt and nursing him. So, but I guess they have to put that in order to cover themselves.
So,
Sarsaparilla is root beer. That's what root.
That's what
That's
it's
the
made out of,
flavoring
yeah.
for it, yeah. What I want to finish up with today is, and the reason I'm sharing this is because we started out with garlic, and we're talking about garlic. And of course, garlic is thought of as a food, and yet we can let food be our medicine many times. And I want to share out of a little booklet that we have that's really quite old. I'm guessing from the looks of it, it's probably something out of 1962. Maybe it's not quite old.
Not.
No, couldn't be.
Not.
Anyway, because I'm not old. So anyway, so it's talking here about heartburn and indigestion. So I am kind of going on a different topic, but the common denominator is the fact that we're talking about food here being our medicine. And I'm just going to read this as it reads here. When heartburn, indigestion, gassiness, belching, bloating, and sour stomach are due to excess stomach acids or gastric hyperacidity, nature provides a simple and effective remedy. Simply juice a raw potato or washed potato. Do not peel. In your vegetable juice extractor. Dilute the juice with 2 to 3 times the amount of warm water. And be certain to drink the freshly made mixture first thing every morning. Drink the fresh potato juice and water again before lunch and at bedtime. He says bedtime. I don't know. I'd say don't be giving your stomach any work right before bed, but that's what it says here. Let your stomach rest, but do it at lunch, just before lunchtime and before breakfast, definitely. It is simply amazing how raw potato juice can overcome your excess acid problems. And he's saying if you don't happen to have an electric juicer, because in 1962 they weren't quite so common and accessible, you can still enjoy the blessing of raw potato juice even if you don't have access to a juice extractor. All you need to do is grate a raw potato finely, place the pulp into cheesecloth, and press out the juice. So you could get creative if you didn't have a juicer, and maybe it's not going to give you quite as much juice out of it as you'd have gotten with a juicer, but yeah, you're going to get that. So there's a simple way using a potato, raw potato, and I would say he didn't specify here, but red potatoes seem to be the red raw potato, because they also have red raw potato juice is a cancer cure.
Killer.
It helps to take care of cancer.
Mark gave me red raw potatoes. I had to swish my juice around every time he used that because the
starch would always settle to the bottom.
So
out of the
then
potato.
It was hard to chew up. Okay, somebody asks here. Somebody said salt water. What's that? A saltwater flush is also good.
The Sol is the Soleil water. Have you heard of that?
No.
Take Celtic is actually healthiest used,
Oh.
but you want to make the salt for the water. You want it to absorb as much salt as it possibly can, and then you just use about a half teaspoon of that in 8 ounces of water, and you drink that first thing in the morning, and it helps your adrenals. And it helps you through the day to be able to absorb and utilize the water that you drink.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
a cup of, you can use Himalayan, but take a cup of either Celtic or pink Himalayan and put it in a quart of water. Good water, of course.
Yes.
Distilled or...
Distilled would be best. Or RO. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then it for 8 hours. And if it did not absorb all the salt, if the salt at the bottom, that water is fully loaded with sodium, all the minerals, sodium and
okay.
Anyway, all the minerals.
All of them.
I'm not hearing very well. I'm not hearing you very
You're
well.
breaking up,
Yeah, I'm
Catherine.
not either. You're cutting out.
And then you just use a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of that in 8 ounces of water in the morning, first thing, before you even get out of bed.
Okay. Awesome.
No.
You're breaking up. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I don't have a good signal here.
And also, Catherine, for those who had a hard time hearing you, we use the Panacos deep sea water. And what we did when we wanted to flush out quickly from sitting, traveling 12,000
Miles.
was we just drank down. Within about 15 minutes, we drank a quart of that. And it will help you eliminate completely. Yes. And then hydrate yourself with regular water. And that's an excellent bowel cleanse. Okay. You're digitized, Catherine. Is he still
Okay, great.
He's still
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have her try it again.
Yeah, if you've got a better spot, you can try it again, or you can try turning off the camera. Sometimes that helps. Turn off the camera and then talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's quiet, but we can hear you.
What kind of water did you mention?
It's deep sea water, and the brand is Panacos, Panakos.
Oh, okay.
So it's seawater that we found to be very mineral rich, as well as, of course, the salty. And with that, we have to be. You've still got to be careful because you don't want too much. You can overdo on salt. I mean, too much of a good thing's not good too.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, Donna, I see your line lit up there.
Oh, I was just saying we couldn't hear her. Would you repeat it? But I didn't mute, I guess.
Yeah, it was. She was, and we were having a hard time hearing as well. But using salt in water first thing in the morning to help, and it'll help with the electrolyte balance in the body, and so that can be a way. And just the only thing I would caution with that one is, and the same way with the Panacos, is you could do that for a while, but don't do it every single day all the time, especially if you're putting a lot of salt on your food, because then you're getting too much sodium, which then can become an issue. But the
other thing with colicky babies, the reason they get colic is because if you read in the scriptures, the Lord said, I found you and you were not salted and you were not cleaned up from the birthing process. Back in Bible times, they would take salt and put it on the skin of the newborn baby and let it draw all the toxins out so that their liver was not congested. Colic in a baby is caused from congestion. I didn't know that with my first two. My first baby had terrible colic because I had a torpid liver, not living right, eating lots of cheese when I was pregnant with her. And so she was very, very colicky. And my second one wasn't so bad because by then we were getting into health stuff. My third one, I had read about this in the scriptures and said, okay, and by then we'd been giving people treatments of the salt glows at the end of the baths and stuff. And so I studied it up, and sure enough, back in Bible times, that's what they did, was they salted the baby, just gently rubbed the salt on the infant with olive oil, and then would let it draw, and then rinse him off. So I did that with our third child. He never had a day of colic. Never. He started getting colicky on me on day 3, and I did the olive oil salt, and that was it. He was done, and there was no walking the floor night after night after night after night with him like the others. So that's a good thing to do too.
We're well over time. Let's have a prayer and be finished. Our dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the word of truth. We thank you for the herbs of the field and the foods that can be such a healing blessing. And as troublous times come upon us with the even more so in a greater way, we just plead for that covering from the Almighty that will shield and protect those who are striving day by day to be faithful, to obey all of the conditions that have been given to us in the Word. We thank you for your continued blessing upon your people. And we pray, Father, that we will each one be able to be accounted faithful in that great day, and that soon and very soon we will be able to see our Savior face to face. But until then, we look to that most holy place and strive to, in our minds, be there where that judgment scene is yet going forward. Guide and keep us now, we ask, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.